Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, let me find my button here. There we go. It's the weekly pint. It's one of those nights for me. So not only do I have children that are just screwing with me right now, trying to make sure that my life is miserable. It's been one of those nights. I should have learned my lesson a long time ago that you don't book things on Monday nights. You don't push things into the weekly pint territory. And yet sometimes I still do it. I'm like, oh, it's okay. I trust these guys. I trust the marketing companies that are promoting these guys. And it doesn't usually work out. And it didn't work out tonight. So I booked something tonight, and then it didn't work out. And so now I'm mad. I'm upset. I'm sad. I don't know, guys. It's a night, and I need a beer. So everybody tell me what you're drinking. It looks like, if I've been reading this right, the Ludwigs, Caroline and Joe, are drinking hot toddies. I'm all about that. That sounds awesome right now. Julia is drinking a Westside Juicy IPA. Justin didn't tell us what he was drinking. Clearly, he doesn't understand what the show is about. The show that is not a show, what it's about. Marco is having a truth and making food at home since he's still on vacation and alive, and we will talk about that. The Newbert Report is drinking Coots Banquet. Sounds like it's similar to Coors Banquet, but very Canadian. Coots Banquet. Different brand, clearly. Still at the shop. I don't know what that means. Sounds like something very hands-on. Justin says you'll never guess. Jason is drinking gin and Sunny D. Ooh, there we go. I'm drinking tonight's non-sponsor sponsor, Liquid Death. If you guys want to pester Liquid Death a little bit, feel free to tell them they should sponsor the show. That's what I'm drinking right this second, but we're cracking into something else. This was a freebie. I think legally I'm supposed to say that the brewery provided this for me. This is from Appalachian State. Marco is very familiar with how we got all of this beer. We have so much of this. This is Wild Trail. I've not tried this one. It's a pale ale, and it has Bigfoot. Excuse me. On the label. My camera is on different settings, so it's not going to focus on this, but there is Bigfoot there. There we go. Can you see it? We're going to dive in. Let's see. Josh is drinking Stone's Japanese Green Tea Ipa. I was there when Julia bought that for you. Let me know how it is. And then Michael is drinking Bissell, the substance, from a beat-up can. Marco says he is taking some to Julia tomorrow. I assume some of the Appalachian State beer. We got a ton of this beer. They were very generous with how much beer they sent home with us this weekend, which we'll talk a little bit about all of that. If you listen to Cincy Brewcast, you know that we were out of town this weekend. If you listen to Cincy Brewcast, you also know that we almost killed Marco this weekend. I say we loosely. I saved his life single-handedly while everyone else tried to kill him. But, yeah, Marco almost died, which actually I could play the voicemail that Marco sent me, which I'm assuming is the same as the voicemail that Marco also sent to Julia at midnight that night, as Marco was calling everybody that he could think of to tell that he almost died. Josh says I enjoyed it a lot, very flavorful. I haven't tried it. I'm actually kind of curious. Matt Damaris is also drinking Greenbrier Valley. Greenbrier Valley. I'm sorry. Did I say Appalachian State? No, Greenbrier Valley. Yeah. Okay. This is how terrible. This is how bad my day has been. Green Bar Valley. Jesus. What are you drinking, Matt Damaris? This is a pale ale, 5.7%. It's been a really, really long day, you guys. My wife says we don't talk about that, Justin. Referring to Justin saying at least he didn't go to jail. We don't know that I didn't go to jail. Oh, Matt Damaris is drinking a French martini? It sounds way too fancy. Julia says, I was asleep when Marco sent the "you up" text at midnight. I did get a text about the ditch, though. Yeah. Yeah, it was a fun night, you guys. All right, let's start there before I dive into this beer. I want to play the. Sorry, I'm reading text messages, specifically the last one from Michael. It's been chaos, you guys. It was, for the record, just responding to that text message via this show. I'm not going to say what the text message was, but yeah, it was like as much as you can imagine it being. Newbert Report says, ditches be crazy. The ditches evidently be very crazy. Not as crazy as cliffs, though. Let me find how to access a text message here. It'll be there and here. Okay. This was a text message, or a voicemail that I received from Marco at 12:15 this weekend on Sunday when I was sitting right next to him. Should be right there. Let's see if this works. Yeah, hey. That's not working. Hang on. We'll get this. There we go.
Yeah, hey, Noam, long-time caller, first-time listener. Just want you to know, I'm out here with you, by the way, in West Virginia with some of our podcast friends, Matt Damaris from Hustle and Brews, and Mark Miller from, the Cincy Brews Travelers Outcast podcast. And we are having a great time. And I almost fucking died. And you don't have the decency to answer the fucking phone, even though you're standing or sitting right next to me. So either way, you know what? I want to tell you, your podcast and platform is fantastic. I enjoy your content, and I just I hope that you are able to continue to do the things you want to do, especially since you quit your full-time job, which is, I don't know, hopefully great. So anyways, love you. Talk to you soon. Bye.
You guys, we almost killed Marco, and I don't know how into details we want to go about how we almost killed Marco, because I think that's going to become the legend of of all of this. Everybody's going to have their own story behind it, but Marco fell off a cliff and almost died, and then the next day also fell into a ditch while we were drawing penises in a road. Julia says, I would have been so pissed if I had to find a new podcast host. Yeah, it would have been tough. Caroline says, we thought Marco was trying to kill Cincinnati beer podcasters a few months ago, but it was the gnome all along. Nope. I saved Marco single-handedly. Mark says we saved Marco. Okay, maybe we all did, but whatever. This was an attempt to turn Marco into a button. Oh, I assure you that if we decide to have Marco buttons after this weekend, we have plenty of content. We have between the group of us, we have lots of Marco material. Let's put it that way. Julia says, so do you all get a refund from Chris since Marco is still around? I think I made that joke at some point throughout the weekend. Um, uh, no, we're probably not going to get a refund because it was as close as it could possibly be. It was fine. He's all right. He's still around. We also, I don't know if Julia knows this yet. We made Marco call his wife that night, because we knew that not only would I be talking about the fact that Marco almost died now, we knew that this morning when Cincy Brewcast posted, we would be talking in that show about how Marco almost died. And God knows what other shows tomorrow or any other days. There's going to be a lot of people talking about how Marco almost died. And we thought that his wife needed to know before anybody else knew. So we had him call her. And of course, because we are content creators, we made him record it while he was calling her. So I have that audio, and I'm not going to play it because I haven't edited it down yet. I haven't made it sound good. But when I do, I'm sending it straight to Julia, and we'll let her be the voice of reason if it ever gets played or not. You guys have first dibs. You can put it on social media, but it exists. The minute that Marco tells his wife that he fell off a cliff and almost died. We're terrible. We're horrible people. This is what you missed out on, Julia, by not being awake at midnight. You could have answered the phone or just responded to the text, like, yeah, I'm up. I'm really tired, but I have 7 minutes. Marco says that she apologized for not being great content, but I think she did great. She did good. I think that she was just waiting for the next bit of information. She's like, okay, he almost died, and Julia says, if I would have been invited, you didn't want to be there. There was way too much farting happening in that cabin. I didn't pull up anything on the screen. I'm sorry. Chat. We'll pull up the chat. You guys can at least see. Oops. Now it's black. There we go. Chat. There you go. Now you guys can see wherever you are chatting. Sorry. You'll be invited at some point. We'll do a different trip. We'll do something fun. For anybody that's confused, if you didn't listen to Cincy Brewcast, if you don't know what we're talking about, we did a trip this weekend. A dude trip, Cincy Brews Travelers, but only for dudes, which is why Julia was not invited. And we're sexist in that way, and that's fine. You'll understand when you listen to some of the content. We are all about creating some kind of awkwardness in tap rooms that maybe doesn't exist or does exist. Matt Damaris was a little bit worried that some of his favorite tap rooms would disavow him now after some of the things we said about the how we felt in some of the tap rooms. Joe says, what's Cincy Brewcast? I thought that was over. Yeah, if you guys didn't catch on, the week before this week, so last week's episode, I announced that it was Dayton Brewcast. That was a April Fool's joke. And it was just a show about a Dayton brewery because some of them are kind of fun. And this week, just out of curiosity, just out of like pure dumb luck, is a West Virginia brewcast. It's not because Cincy Brewcast is not talking about Cincinnati. It's just because that's the way it worked out. Next week is definitely about a Cincinnati brewery. A Cincinnati brewery that a lot of you guys are definitely in love with. And they are doing some really fun stuff and throwing a huge event that you guys are going to want to know about. So tune in next week because we'll be talking about that. I'm going to drink a beer, you guys. Like I said, this is Wild Trail. I have not tried this one yet, and I have probably a whole case of it sitting around my house at this point. So much. The Greenbrier Valley has this whole series of cryptids that they use for their beer names and like the theme of the beer. I think that from what I've seen, like almost all of their beers, if not all of their beers, are tied into some kind of legends somehow. Um, I'd have to dig in a little deeper to confirm that, but um, uh, Mothman is one of them. We tried that beer on Cincy Brewcast back in like season 1, somewhere around there. It's a black IPA. I'll probably be drinking it somewhere. Maybe you'll see me drinking it, maybe not. And this is another one. It's called Wild Trail, but the can has Bigfoot on it, or a really really fun looking version of Bigfoot, like some kind of Sasquatch swinging from vines. Like he looks really really fun, like a party dude. It says, let me read this. If I can actually see it in this light. It says Sasquatch sightings continue throughout the hills and hollows of West Virginia. His adventures, his adventurous spirit lives on throughout this robust mango, floral, and slightly piney flavored pale ale. Enjoy this flavorful brew at home or after an adventure searching for Sasquatch on one of your favorite wild trails. And that's exactly what we did this weekend. We looked for Sasquatch, and we did not see him. We just almost killed Marco. Mark says, I thought you moved to Dayton. Caroline says Lisa was in Cleveland, then we'd have to stop listening. Mark says you better record it, referring to Julia talking about taking a girls' trip. As long as there's content that comes out of whatever any of us do, I think we should all do it. Just more and more content. We recorded so much stuff this weekend. I hope that I have enough video content to get a YouTube video together, because that was one of the big reasons that I went, was to get this video done, and I'm not sure that I actually made a whole lot of video content. We'll see. We'll see what I can get together. Let me dive into this. Pale ale. It smells tropical. The notes say mango, floral, slightly piney, and 5.7%. Okay. Yeah, that's fine. That's good. It's tropical. A little bit fruit. That's good. I'm okay with that. Do we want to talk about the bigger picture of West Virginia beer? Do we want to talk about the confusion around West Virginia beer? Do we want to talk about how we killed Marco, or almost killed Marco? I guess he's not dead. It's a fine beer. No, I mean, this is not a bad beer. It's not the best beer I've ever had, but you've got to put this into context with what's happening in West Virginia. West Virginia is a really, really, really strange state when it comes to beer. I don't know can somebody Google the population of West Virginia as a state? Because it's not very high. There's not a lot of people that live in the state. Hang on. Let's do a little bit of Googling here. All right, so Ohio, for reference, has... Can someone make a beer called We Almost Killed Marco? Yeah, that's a good name for a beer. Quick little Google search says Ohio has a population of 11.6 million people. To contrast that, West Virginia... Working here. Oh, shit, I just lost it. There we go. Mark says 1.792 million people. So there is a huge, huge, huge difference there of how many people live in these two different states. We're talking about uh, 11.7 versus or 11.6 versus 1.7. So West Virginia is 10% of the size of Ohio as far as the people that live in the entire state. The breweries definitely show that. They are there's less of them, and on top of that, Julia says, "Where the hell's David?" Shouldn't they be doing all this googling? I like that you call David a they. We'll have to ask David how he how they identify. He's not here this week. Okay, we got a lot going on here. Matt wants to know if it's cliffhanger or dangles. I think we should vote at the end of the episode. Talk about which nickname Marco gets. And then Julia also says they were both his nicknames in high school. It was, to clarify, it was Tiny Dangles in high school. We shortened it on the trip. But going back to West Virginia versus Ohio and trying to understand the beer scenes, you're talking about 10% of the population in a state that's relatively about the same size as far as like square mileage, just off the top of my head. Looking on a map, they both look about the same size. West Virginia is very sparsely populated. So when you find these breweries in these little hollers and little towns and stuff, there aren't as many people around them to help them grow and help them become what we are familiar with. That's not an excuse for beer that isn't as good, but it does kind of help you understand what they're dealing with. I don't know of many towns in West Virginia that have multiple breweries the way they are here in Ohio. Not that there aren't towns with multiple breweries, some of the bigger towns like Charleston or Morgantown. Yeah, there we go. Ohio square mileage 44,825 versus West Virginia 24, so half the size. Okay, so West Virginia is about half the size ish, and then 10% of the population. It's smaller. That's what you need to know. And then you get these little towns, and we'll talk specifically about Elkins, which is where we spent most of our time. Elkins, West Virginia, is a town. What did we decide? There was like 7,000 people that live in Elkins, with one current brewery, two kind of, but one of them is probably never going to open back up. And the brewery that is in Elkins, the tap room holds 30 people. Like it's very different than what we're used to here in Cincinnati. I think that makes it hard to push a brewery to keep growing as far as beer quality goes. Not that Big Timber and Elkins is making bad beer. I don't think they're making bad beer. I think that when you look at some of these really crazy beer towns like Cincinnati or Asheville or San Diego or the Portlands or whatever your beer town is in your head, part of what makes a beer town is the competition. It forces everybody to keep pushing themselves and keep trying to improve and keep doing things better than they did yesterday. And when you don't have that person right next door to you, you don't get better at the same rate as a place that does. If that makes any sense without insulting people. I don't want to insult anybody in West Virginia. I had an absolute blast in West Virginia. In fact, so much so that my favorite brewery that I went to in West Virginia, I think made the worst beer that I had in West Virginia. And for those of you that were with us, you know which one I'm talking about. It was by far my favorite. And um, their beer was not great, but I don't think it's just about that. I think that every one of these breweries could just keep getting better and better if they had some way to have some kind of community around them to help them keep improving. That seems really simple when I say it out loud. That seems it seems stupidly simple, but yeah, I love West Virginia beer. I want that to be clear. I don't want anybody to think that we were trashing West Virginia and the beer scene that is happening there, because it's really incredible, especially when you look back at when I was first passing through West Virginia as a kind of a hardcore drinker, if we can put it that way, a person who drinks heavily. I think that at that time there were under 10 breweries in the state, like the entire state. When you compare that to what's happening in other beer cities, it's hard to put those in the same category. It's a different game. Marco says, when your brew systems are the size of theirs, it's hard to dial in if you don't have a baseline of what you're trying to get to. That's another great point. Everything was Caroline says, could it partially be well water versus city treated water? No, I don't think that was the problem. Marco was talking about the size of the system. The brew house, the breweries, were way bigger than most of the breweries that we're used to here in Cincinnati. I don't want to go into specifics for different people, but the average brewery here in the city, I'm going to say brews. I mean, if we want to say average, we are well under 1,000 barrels for what is a normal brewery in the city. And that's lumping in places like Rheingeist that is doing 100,000 barrels. Most of our breweries are small breweries. When you compare that to the places that we were looking at in West Virginia, they are way bigger than that. The tap rooms are small. The feeling of the brewery is small. But the amount of beer that they are making is way more than anybody around here is making. I shouldn't say anybody. Way more than the average here in Cincinnati. That's hard to do. Like that's not an easy task to take a 15 barrel system and to crank out, 4,000 barrels a year or something. That's a real operation. That's a thing. And if you don't have people around you that have already done that, it makes it even harder to do that. Like that's a task. If you don't have some kind of community that you can just lean on to help you with some of that growth and some of those problems that you run into, it's when you look at Rheingeist, 100,000 barrels a year, big brewery, really cranking stuff out. When they run into some kind of problem within their business, they can't just call over to Narrow Path and say, "Hey, man, like we don't really understand this part of our business right now. Like, how do we figure it out? How to distribute to 7 states? I guess it's really tough." Narrow Path is gonna be like, "Man, we don't know. We've never done that before. Your guess is as good as ours." They have to call to somebody that has done it before. I don't know that some of these West Virginia breweries have those places that they can just call and be like, "Hey, we don't really know what we're doing right now because this is new ground for us," because it's new ground for everybody there. It's very, I don't want to call it behind because that seems like a dig at this West Virginia beer culture. It's just not. It's behind. It's behind the average in the country. It's behind what's happening in Ohio. Um, it's 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 you know, it's just different. It's so different than anything I've seen. In a fun way though. They it felt like every one of the tap rooms that we were in understood themselves very deeply, like as far as their culture and who they are as a brewery. They knew that, and they just hadn't figured out how to take that and then make that match up with their tap room, and then make that match up with their beer, and have all those things come together into one cohesive thing. Julia says, I think you said it best by saying they just don't have the same resources a city like Cincinnati does to answer some of those questions. Yeah, that's probably the way I would wrap it up in like a nice little package. They don't have the resources around them to keep themselves taking those steps the way that a place in Cincinnati does. If you're a new brewery in Cincinnati, there is somebody in your bubble somehow, close enough by, that has already been there, that you can call or watch or something, and you can say, hey, how did you guys do this? Who did you watch when you were opening? How did they do it? And you can kind of learn from those people around you. And that just does not exist in West Virginia. You're alone. You're on a mountaintop in a small little town of 1,000 people if you're lucky, that is just kind of not only figuring out craft beer and what craft beer is supposed to taste like for them, but how to actually do that in a commercial sense. Like as a drinker, it's fun to watch. Like it's really, really fun to watch and fun to experience and fun to be a part of. As somebody coming from Cincinnati, it's easy to look at it and be like, man, this beer is not as good. But of course it's not as good. It shouldn't be as good. I hope some of that makes sense. I hope it's not insulting to anybody who makes beer in West Virginia, because I don't mean it to be. In the same way that there are breweries here in Cincinnati that are better than other breweries here in Cincinnati because of different reasons. It doesn't mean that they're bad. It just means that for one reason or another, they are behind a little bit. Marco points out Big Timber is cranking out their volume with 2 brewers is crazy. He's talking about 2 actual people that make the beer. And that was my understanding after talking to them, that they are in a 4,000 barrels a year production facility with 2 people that run it, 2 people that make the beer. I know that may not compute for everybody that's listening to this, because not everybody works in a brewery. But for those of you who do, 2 people, 5,000. So 2 actual people that run a 5,000 barrel a year brewery. 2 people. Mark points out that that's almost a barrel per citizen. That's a great point. They're not just distributing to the city though. It's statewide. I don't think Big Timber distributes outside of West Virginia. But yeah, it's there's a lot of beer coming out of that place, and they're not alone. That's what's so nuts about it, is those big breweries seem to be the normal versus the small places. If you are the only brewery in a certain radius, it leaves you a lot of leeway to make a crap ton of beer. If you're one of only I mean, we'll say I don't know what the actual number is at this point, but one of only we'll say 30 breweries in the state. That's a lot of beer that can be made if you can convince people to drink craft beer. Which is the other thing. Pint prices. Do we want to talk about pricing of beer? This idea of walking into a tap room and buying a pint of beer for $4, man, I'm all about it. I will take that all day, every day. It's it's strange. It was a shock to the system to go back out today and back into the Cincinnati world of pint prices that are not $4. Although I did stop by Strauss House in Main Strasse, and they have pitchers for $3. So I mean, I guess it still exists. Julia says $8 flights. I think you said on Cincy Brewcast. Yeah, that was one of the places with $8 flights. Flight prices were all over the board. Some places were like, some places were charging like per sample, a couple bucks per taster, and then some places were like $6 or so for a flight, $8 somewhere around there. It was all over the board. Marco says in Cincinnati. I don't know what you're referring to. Do we want to talk any more about our experiences with West Virginia's beer scene? Do we want to talk more about how Matt Damaris almost killed Marco? You guys tell me where you want me to go with this, and I will take your guidance. Mark says, I think Screech Out was $6.50 a flight. I think you are correct, which is why I think we all ordered flights there. Rebecca says she's just dropping in to say she misses working with me, but keep it gnarly. Well, thank you, Rebecca. Miss working with you too. We can still work together sometime. We'll figure out a way to make that happen. Julia says, did you only take the one hike, or did we get more naturing in? No, we took the one. We probably would have walked a little bit more, but we almost killed Marco the first time that we did it. So we decided we should not nature anymore. We shouldn't do anything else physical. We shouldn't step on any more trails, any more dirt, nothing. Whereas Marco says, hell to the nah. I mean, like it was chaotic and stressful. Caroline says, did you want them to risk actually killing Marco? I don't know if it comes across, and maybe because on your show, Julia, you guys sometimes bullshit sometimes about things. It's funny, and we joke about it and we laugh about it, about how we almost killed Marco, but we almost killed Marco. Like, we actually almost killed Marco. Like, he was dangling off of a cliff. I'm going to get a tattoo of Marco. Like this. Dangling off a cliff. Like, arms up, dangling. But with that being said, everybody was calm, cool, and collected the whole time. Marco never screamed like a girl. And I mean that in a non-sexist way. There was no shriek. He never, there might have been a little bit of a grunt when he went off the cliff. I think it was a, ugh. I think that's my impression. Ugh. That was it. Only sound. And then, of course, I leapt into action, and did some kind of like I don't want to say it was a heroic roll, but it was a roll that I did across the pathway to get closer to Marco, to reach down and grab him, and swoop him up into safety. Matt Damaris and Mark Miller, they also sprung into action much slower than me, and there wasn't any rolling or heroics happening, but they were reaching and kind of asking for guidance, like, hey gnome, how do we help you save his life? That happened. Colin says, I've never met her, but I thought I saw Julia doing a podcast at Westside the other day. Yes. Joe says merchandise idea as far as the picture of Marco. Custom Marco hang in there posters. I would 100% buy a hang in there poster with Marco. We Caroline says yes, the craft parenting podcast with Caroline and Joe. She also says you should have come over to say hi. You should have. Yeah, so the day after we almost killed Marco, we were at a brewery that the bartender does all the artwork on their coasters, and she's an artist. She draws things. I wish I had. They're in the other room. I can't get to them quickly, and since David's not here, I can't get them for you. But she does these really cool little paintings. They're I guess all the coasters are kind of like watercolor kind of stuff, if my memory is right. Casually mentioned that we needed her to sketch a quick little picture of Marco dangling from a cliff. She laughed. Everyone else laughed. And then I just let it go. I think they thought I was joking. But yes, we need that. If I could draw, I would draw it. And I would make a t-shirt with Marco dangling off a cliff. It was simultaneously, it was the most traumatizing part of the weekend and the highlight of the weekend. Josh says that Marco Meets His Maker would be a great kids book, or maybe a beer. Marco plummets. The plummeting Marco Pale Ale. I guess it should be a Pilsner. Plummeting Marco Pilsner. It was a big weekend, guys. Marco says, I have a character ordered of me. Not sure if it will be the cliff thing. It better be. Your hands better at least be up. I don't need to see a cliff. Just you with your hands up. I guess it could look like you're getting arrested or something too, but I don't know. Joe says that if only Marco knew a brewer who could make or name a beer based on the experience. Oh, we could go down a rabbit hole there about Marco knowing people that are making beers. I don't know what we can talk about. Waiting to see some kind of reaction off of that. But my live feed is it's a little bit ahead of the actual live chat. So when I say something, I gotta wait a minute for people to respond to it. I just a t-shirt or a sticker or something. I feel like I can come up with something. There will be something. I don't know what. Colin says, couldn't be me. Now we could just call it Pilsner. We'll just assume that every beer is actually themed to Marco almost dying, even if it's not named that way. Every beer is named after Marco at Westside. It's Westside Wheat, Marco. Westside Pilsner, Marco. It's all part of it. All right. Let's start winding things down. I'm going to sit. I'm going to finish this beer. And then I'm going to go make sure my family is actually asleep. And by family, I mean the small ones with big voices. Tomorrow, if you guys aren't aware, is sort of opening day. And we call it sort of opening day because opening day kind of already happened. This is when all the festivities happen here in town, where the Reds take on the Cleveland Guardians. I think that's what we call them now. So I will be out and about during the day. If you guys see me out, say hi. I'm recording a podcast, an early morning podcast. We are doing a bright and early Cincy Brewcast to set the day off right. And then we are following that up with a a day of Reds celebration. So if you see me, say hi. Marco says it was a great time, referring to this weekend, except for the almost dying part. I'm going to say that was also a great time since you didn't die. If you did die, it would have been like probably the worst part about the weekend. There was I think that would have been the worst part of the weekend. I don't know. But all in all, it was a good weekend. I appreciate the invite from Matt. Matt, if you're still on the stream, thank you very much for inviting us. Sorry, we almost killed Marco on your watch. I know that would have made an awkward phone call for you to explain to the world that you killed Marco. Thank you guys very much. I like how Marco dying wouldn't for sure be the worst part. What would have been worse than that? It was a weird weekend. There was some wild, weird stuff. It's West Virginia. Mark says that was the best part. Marco says, thanks. Let's do it again. It'll be fun, guys. Next time I hang out with Marco, he will be less likely to die than he was this last time. I'm going to... I don't know. Tomorrow morning, I will... Marco says my steaks were almost well done. That was the worst part of the weekend, is Marco's damn steaks that he made at midnight the one night. Oh, Lord. Julia says Marco and I have a lot to talk about tomorrow. I will edit down some audio, and I will send it to Julia tomorrow for her to decide if she wants to use on Truth Beer Podsequences or on their social media or something. But it is the audio of Marco telling his wife that he almost died. Caroline says, make sure your wife has an updated life insurance policy on you at this rate. I don't want to spoil anything, but that was a topic of conversation when he called his wife. Julia says, do you still have access to the Dropbox? I don't know. We'll figure it out. It's a fairly short clip. Worst comes to worst, I can it's small enough that I think I can email it to you or send you a link somehow. We'll figure that out. We'll cross that bridge tomorrow, probably afternoon. The idea is almost to not let you preview it before you guys are actually recording. That's my goal. So that you have to decide if you want to just play it live or use it somewhere else. Thank you guys. As always, if you want to support Cincy Brewcast or the Gnarly Gnome or any of the stuff, the easiest way to do that and the best way to do that is to go to thegnarlygnome.com/support. And that sends you right to the Patreon page, and that helps a ton. Otherwise, you can just support by sharing all of this with a friend or somebody that you know likes Cincinnati craft beer or maybe West Virginia craft beer or that likes hearing stories about Marco almost dying, whatever. Just share it with somebody because that also helps. But thank you guys for hanging out and being a part of this weird little experiment that started during COVID as a way for us to be around other people and drink together, that has turned into something that I can't imagine having a week without, because it's fun. I like it. I like being able to spend time with you guys. That's the short story. So thank you for being a part of that. Thank you for making this what it is, and know that none of it would be the same, and none of it would even really exist without you. So thank you. I'm trying to find the there we go. If you guys want a hint at what is coming for next week's Brewcast, it's about a very dark beer. Let's just put it that way. Something that I know that a lot of you guys are probably going to be really into. So stay tuned for that. We'll see you next week. Same place, same time, almost the same time. Hopefully I'll be more on time next week. Marco says not interested. I don't know if it has lactose. I'll have to check. We'll see you guys. Cheers, everybody. I don't want to say it out loud, but I'm pretty sure that I saw Mark push Marco off the cliff. He said he was angry at him for cheating at Cards Against Humanity.